Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. My name is Arsh, Molu. I work at the Human Rights Foundation. This morning, you've heard from a lot of our friends and colleagues about topics on Bitcoin and activism, using Bitcoin and their everyday lives to power their movements, power their activism. You heard from people in Ukraine. You heard from people in Russia, in Nicaragua, and even recently, our friend Fadi talking about Bitcoin in Palestine. So today, I'm pleased to welcome Roya. It's an honor to call her a friend. So yeah, give us an introduction.
Thank you, Ash. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your upbringing?
Sure. I'm Roya Mahboob. I am the CEO and founder of Digital Sam Fund. It's a nonprofit organization based in New York, and what we are doing is trying to empowering young women in developing countries like Afghanistan. We are building the IT centers inside of the public schools and providing training for the young girls to learn from how to work with the computer to level that they can know about robotics. They learn about blockchain, Bitcoin, and also they learn about financial literacy. So far, our organization helped more than 20,000 of the young girls to learn about technology. We built 13 technology centers, and we helped more than hundreds of them to start their own startups, young women.
So how did you discover the internet, and when was this?
I always say that I am lucky to be part of the golden era of Afghanistan. In 2003, there was an internet cafe that was opened up in my hometown, Herat, and people call that there is a magic box that connects you with the outside world, and you can find any information that you're looking for. So I was insisted to go there, and that was at that time only boys could go there. My brother, my cousin, but a good girl wouldn't walk in. But I was insisted to go there, and I think that that was the great things that I did in my life. And after seeing computer, I decided to make technology to be the center of my career. I was lucky enough to go to the university and graduated from computer science. And I started my first company right after the university, and in tech to create a job opportunity for young women that they are graduate from computer science.
And the name of this company was?
Afghan Citizen Software.
Afghan Citizen Software. And what year was this in?
In 2010.
2010, okay. So this slowly digressed into the Women's Annex. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where that story is and where Bitcoin comes into play in that initiative?
Sure. We're building in a platform called, we had a business partner in New York, which they had a film distribution company. And we worked based on his technology, created a Women Annex, was a platform that allowed the women that they can write the blogs and upload the films and get paid based on the content that they created. Like what things that right now doing with the TikTok and Instagrams today or YouTube, but we did it like long time ago, which we allowing the writers to get paid based on the content that they created. That's how the Women X is created, and soon enough we had thousands of the users across Afghanistan. We extended our work in Pakistan at the time, and several other countries like Egypt and Mexico as well. And one problem that we faced with it is that our contributor, when we wanted to pay them, they didn't have bank account. And usually we have to pay money to deposit in the bank account of the men's, which usually they take the money. And whole idea to empowering the women, you couldn't do anything when men takes the money. And it wasn't something that we want to do it. And that's, we decided to providing cash for women. But when you're sending cash across the country is not transparent, and also that if women really receive, especially if there is a middleman, and you have to use the Hawala system to send across the country. And Hawala also is a 8 centuries of way of transferring the money, especially in the Muslim communities. But still, it's very, very male dominated. And again, the women should send their brothers or husband or father to receive the money. And it's similar, like you deposit the money in the bank account of the man. And then we decided to use mobile, which was a very M-Pesa at the time, which was a very successful project in Kenya, but it wasn't really working in Afghanistan at the time. So that was also not a way that we could send paying these women. And another issue is that when you go to the bank and receiving a large amount of money, and you want to go out, if people knows that you have this amount of the money, there was also risk of thief and being kidnapped, and that was also another issues that we couldn't taking that amount of the money. And so those are all the issues that we faced, and then PayPal didn't work in Afghanistan at the time, and also not working in Pakistan. I think was banned, and still I think is banned. So we heard about Bitcoin, and my business partner talked about that, and I was skeptical because it was a digital money at the time. And then we didn't have any other choices. We said, okay, let's do that, and we implemented the Bitcoin, and then we created a digital wallet. And with push of a button, you could send the money, and it was appear on the digital wallet of these women, and they're receiving the money that they earned, and they work for that. And that was the beautiful things about Bitcoin. And that's how Bitcoin helped us to bypass the physical and social barriers to paying the women, and that's how we get involved with Bitcoin.
Yeah, so this was in 2013, right? So you couldn't just use PayPal, right? Like you couldn't reap the benefits of the fintech apps that many people in this room enjoy today, right? Even setting up a bank account, you had to have the permission of your father or your brother to have a bank account. Cash was dangerous to have on you, right? And oftentimes when you got back, your relatives will try to take it away from you. Again, this was 2013. You were using Bitcoin, so the price of Bitcoin was like $100, and then that same year it shot to like 1,200, right? So you probably thought like, oh my God, I'm a genius, right? But Bitcoin came crashing all the way back down to $200.
I lost my business.
Yeah, you lost your business, but it was definitely interesting, right? Because the moral of the story here is you used Bitcoin because you had to. There was no other option, right? Like it's not like you can speculate on like which color fintech app you're going to use. Like, am I feeling Venmo today? Am I going to use Cash App? Like, what's happening here? So your business partner sent you like an article about Bitcoin, and you were like, okay, I guess. Like you knew the technology, the power that technology had, right? Now, fast forward, since the collapse of Kabul, right? The title of this talk is Empowering Underground Education, right? So today marks day 970 of girls not being able to go to school since the collapse of Kabul in August 2021. So how are you using Bitcoin in your work today? Fast forward, 9 years since then.
Before to respond to that question, I have to say that even the time of the during Republic government of Afghanistan, the banking system, it was one of the sufficient progress as one of the sector that it did work very well at the time. But still, 85% of the people didn't trust the banking system. So most of them are relying on Hawala system. When Taliban took over the power, obviously bank system also collapsed at the time, and many people overnight get unbanked. The people and the organization, whoever worked with directly with previous government, and then or as a contractor with U.S. government, they overnight get unbanked because most of their banks get freezed. And during that time, especially August and September of 2021, was so difficult to send money to Afghanistan because the banking system collapsed. The wire transfer like Western Union and MoneyGram were out of the cash, and they didn't have the cash to paying people. And many people rushing to the airport. Obviously, many of you probably saw those pictures. But they just left everything that they had, including my parents, including of my team members that we had to evacuate at the time. And the aid organization and the families who are outside of Afghanistan, they're struggling sending money to Afghanistan for the people who had shortage of the foods and they didn't have enough money to paying for the houses. And for organization like us or the other organization who trying to help us paying for the saving houses at the time. It was a very struggling, and still it's very difficult to send to Afghanistan's money because the current regime is checking and controlling the banking system. So I have a lot of friends that they overnight get poor. Everything that they saved, they lost, and they had to leave the country only with a few clothes, or some of them didn't even have the clothes. They just had lucky to be in the airport and get out of that situation. So, but during that time, the only things that was remained safe, it was cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and a stable coin that remained safe. And you could, those who, especially the Hawala system, Hawala, which we call it Sarrafin in Farsi, they use a Bitcoin and a stable coin to receive money. And they're giving the cash to the people that, especially the young generation that they used at the time. And that was the only ways you could send the money safely and for the foods or for the saving houses, even for some, evacuation part, some organization use that. So Bitcoin is like for us is a safeguard of the human rights, and also is the Catholics of the freedom at the time. And still it is. And what we did after that, obviously for a while, we had to evacuate our staff, evacuated our students that they are part of robotic team. But then later on, we felt that, okay, there are millions of the girls who are still in Afghanistan. We cannot evacuate everybody out. We cannot provide like a waste migration because it's not going to work. But as you know, Science Taliban took over as a gender apartheid is going on in Afghanistan because women don't have access to schools. As you mentioned, more than 965 days that the girls cannot go to the school, no university. They are not allowed to have access to any justice, no health, no work. Basically, what current regime does is to they want to make sure that the women have any participation in a public space. And it's quite sad after 20 years of the big achievement. And we decided we are not living in 1996, so we decided to continue our work. So we had, like other organizations, we had expanded supporting the underground education centers to help the girls can continue to study in homeschooling and also coming to this underground education center. But also we had centers open that Taliban allow under 15 that they can come, they can get training. Some of these women get paid in cryptocurrencies, and some of them no, which also was a result of arresting of 5 of our people because one of these underground schools, one of the women, they did protested, and the Taliban arrested them and arrested students, some of our students, and then they find out that the links of the cash distribution by our teams in Kabul, and that's how they arrest our directors and other members of our office. And and another issues of centralizing the document, and is that once they get access to your central office, they access to all of your information, they access to all of the other underground education center, which was a mistake from us. When I worked with cryptocurrency, I wasn't, I had to implement that before put people in danger. Thanks God today, one of our staff members, after 6 months torturing, he got released thanks to the Amnesty International and also the Richard
That was
Bennett.
today.
That's just today. One of them get after 6 months release, so we are happy, but still we have to fight for. Thank you. We have to fight for other one our directors to get released, and thanks to everybody who talk about that, especially Richard Bennett office that they're working on that case for a long time. But we continue that through the cryptocurrencies at the moment. Another things that we decided to do after arresting our teams is to building an online, digital, online high school platform with SAM education. So that's where we're teaching our trainers across Afghanistan so the women can get connected and provide the training online, but they get paid Bitcoin and they cannot be connected with others. If someone's, like, God forbid, doing something else, get arrested, they wouldn't cause to get access to information of the other people. So that's a school will be launched in the next 3 months, and hopefully the girls can continue their training after 7th grade. So that's one of the plan in to using cryptocurrency for this platform.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of courage it takes, right? Like after being discriminated against for teaching girls and giving them resources and equipping them with what they need to keep learning, right? How many girls have you mentored or taught over the past decade?
It's almost 20,000 of the girls come.
20,000
yes,
girls.
coming direct beneficiary of our training. And we had, before Taliban arresting our team, we had almost 20 underground education centers, and we had more than 2,000 students who study there. But right now, we decreased it to 1,200 students. And hopefully with this platform, our aim is by end of this year to provide training for 5,000 girls.
Got it. Okay. Just a closing thought here. I think we only have another minute or two. Something that you mentioned to me when we were talking earlier this morning was Bitcoin is something that helps you personally bypass your physical and social barriers. Can you just one more time expand on what that really means to you?
I mean, for us as an activist, when especially you're working under countries in conflict or authoritarian regime, Bitcoin is a symbol of the financial freedom for us. It's not controlling by any governments or any institution, and you will not going to be unbanked overnight. And as you know that around 1.7 billion of the people, they are unbanked, and 56% of this population are women, which located mostly in South Asia. And they don't have a bank, not because they are only poor, but there is no ID documentation, and many other reasons, including of the cultural barriers, which the men usually trying to controlling the finance of the women. So I think that this is Bitcoin, as I mentioned, as for us is a catalyst of the freedom, and it's beacon of the hope.
Yeah, and of those same very people, right? I mean, the people who are unbanked for, social, cultural reasons, they don't have documents. A lot of those people have smartphones. There's more smartphones than bank accounts today,
Yes.
right?
And just thinking about that, when the people left the country, if they had, they are forced to leave, being in exile. They lost. If they had a house, they had a farm, factories, or if they had a car, they have to leave everything because the regime don't like them. And one thing that the authoritarian regime does is to making sure that you become poor, and they freeze your account or they restricted your account. You're not going to have access to your finance. Once you don't have access to your finance, especially if it's happening to your activists, you just struggle how to have food for your children and your family. And they make sure that you will be poor enough to not thinking about freedom or democracy. And unfortunately, terrorism and extremism is the disease which is called, like I call it, cancer, but which caused because of the poor education, not having the access to opportunities, and no educations and poverty. And they'll keep you in a darkness that it will be easy for them to brainwash you. And I think that Bitcoin can bring lights to this darkness, because you will have control of your own finance, which is very important.
Yeah, I mean, and just to end on that, right? I mean, today you've heard from Roya, you've heard from our friends earlier this morning, spreading advocacy and doing a lot of activism work in multiple different countries, right? Like you're more known for Afghanistan, but you've done different projects in Pakistan and all around, and the impact of your work goes so much more further. So I wanted to leave on that note that Bitcoin means a lot more for a lot of activists worldwide, more than it means, if it's not obvious at this point, for a lot of the people in DC even, right? Like, talking about all these points of, oh, Bitcoin has no merit, Bitcoin has no use case. So I hope it was obvious to you today, and I hope you've learned a lot more about what Bitcoin has done in the global south and globally. But thank you, Roya, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.